Hey, Allison. Hey, Allison.
Are y'all ready? Is everybody good? Y'all good? Good morning and welcome. I'm the 13th Circuit Solicitor, and today we are here to recognize October as National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. These purple ribbons represent our dedication to tackling domestic violence and breaking the cycle of abuse. I'm also here as a member of the Community Domestic Violence Coordinating Council, and we want to recognize that domestic violence occurs in our community and educate the public on that issue. It's important to remember and know that 1 in 4 women will be the victim of domestic violence at some point in her life. And on average, 3 women in the United States are killed every day at the hands of a current or former intimate partner. Before we begin into the conference, I want to ask Benny Durham to come forward and give us some words of encouragement.
Thank you, Solicitor. It's good to be here this morning to encourage us as a community. First of all, we want to encourage those that are victims. We see that on a daily basis with the Sheriff's Office. We want to encourage you to know that you have a support basis out here. I'm a full-time chaplain with the Sheriff's Office. We have 8 volunteer chaplains as well, and there's a network of chaplains and victim advocates across the upstate that are here to help serve our victims. We're here to encourage families because we've seen personally, one-on-one, these families that suffer along with these victims. We want the families to know that we're here to support you. I believe we have some of the best investigators and solicitors, assistant solicitors in the upstate that are here to help make sure that justice is brought to the perpetrators. And so we want you to know that there's a support network here that's available for everyone. We encourage you to use that and know that our thoughts and prayers will be with you as you go through these difficult days. If there's anything we can do, please contact us. We'll be glad to be there for you. Thank you, Solicitor.
Thank you, Benny. By way of background, in 2015, the governor signed the Domestic Violence Reform Act, which accomplished a number of goals. It strengthened the crimes of domestic violence, giving law enforcement and prosecutors more tools to investigate and prosecute these crimes. But just as important, it created the Community Domestic Violence Coordinating Council. My job as solicitor was to facilitate the development of this council based on a private-public collaboration. The purpose of the council is to increase awareness and understanding of domestic violence and its grave consequences. It's also there to reduce the number of incidences in domestic violence in Greenville and Pickens counties, and to enhance and ensure the safety of battered individuals and their children. This is a collaborative effort of law enforcement, solicitors, victim advocates, service providers that are all coming together to address the continuing crime and to help victims of domestic violence break the vicious cycle of abuse. Already, we've enacted a number of programs, such as the Fatality Review Committee, where we review a case as a council to determine if there was anything we could have done differently to prevent the crime. As a council, we recognize that domestic violence is a community issue, and it will take our community working together, collaboratively together to break the cycle of violence. I'd like to ask our Sheriff Johnny McBrown to come forward for some remarks.
Good morning, everybody. Glad to be here this morning with you. Our deputies often hear 1080 in progress, which is the call letters for a domestic violence case that they will be responding to. Our deputies brace themselves because it could be one of the ugliest, saddening sights you can imagine answering the domestic. It's a horrifying experience where you see blood, you see bruising, you see tears, you see rages of violence. Our deputies know that they're responding to an incident that could be in life, put their lives in danger. And they're responding accordingly with the tools that they need to complete investigation of domestic violence. The victims of abuse are not so fortunate. These helpless victims are often powerless and incapable for defending themselves. Domestic violence is a problem dating back to biblical times. It's a problem that where victims, advocates, legislators, and law enforcement have done everything we do in working to diminish for a number of years, but unfortunately, violence still occurs. So what's the solution? What is the pinpoint or the core of the problem? We must enforce enacted legislation that deals with domestic violence. Any domestic violence-related incident above the number 0 is unacceptable, and we will not tolerate. And I can proudly tell you that over the past few years, that we have steadily increased the number of arrests on domestic-related offenses. In 2016, there were 1,462 cases with a 59% arrest. In 2017, we investigated 1,274 cases with a 66% arrest. And as of today, we have investigated 949 cases with a 72% that resulted in arrests. As the numbers indicate, our deputies and investigators are doing a tremendous job investigating offenders who commit domestic violence through body-worn cameras, through auto recordings in our vehicles, or useful tools as our investigators have successfully and adequately enforced the laws relating to domestic violence and trying to eliminate this category of criminal activity. This requires community effort in helping us to defend those against domestic violence. As law enforcement, we must continue to work in conjunction with our solicitor's office and to enforce the laws and prosecute those offenders to the fullest extent so that we can save lives and promote a safe environment for those who call Greenville County home. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sheriff. I'd now like to call on Sheriff from Pickens County, Rick Clark.
First of all, I want to thank everyone for coming out today. The support like this gives us hope of what we can do about domestic violence in our 2 counties and in this circuit, and appreciate the solicitor and sheriff being with us. But my experience with domestic violence goes back a way. Back in 2003, we sat down in Pickens County at a church, and about 5 or 6 of us around the church decided we wanted to build a domestic violence shelter in Pickens County. We had no idea what we were doing. We didn't know if we could do it, but Mary's House has been in business now for over a decade. And I hate to say been in business for that long, but we still have a growing problem in Pickens County. So I come at it from kind of a different end, from the law enforcement end, but to serve victims is what we need to do. But we got to come together and get innovative and do what we need to do to make a dent in the statistics that we have for domestic violence. And there's a lot of things going. The state has done a lot of things. Initiatives by the solicitor's office has gone well. And what we're seeing in Pickens County is in 2016 we had 342 cases of domestic violence. In 2017 we had 418 cases, and so far this year we've had 277 cases. That's for Pickens County. Those numbers are horrific, and what's horrific is what happens to, of course, usually the mom and dad, but what we see is the long-lasting effects of children. Domestic violence is kind of like alcohol or a drug. It's recidivism every year that we see that happens to the kids because they don't know what a stable family is. They don't know what doing. So those are the type of things we need to do. And one of the things that I've been working on a lot is addiction and mental health and behavioral health. And that's an integral part of this whole system. So we've got to kind of change what we're doing in a longer term thing, or process of what we're doing and how we can affect people in many different ways by changing of what we do. one of the things that we did, solicitor mentioned Governor Haley's effort back in 2015. One of the simple things that we've done is over the past week or so, we've just got about 30 cameras in, just a simple camera that you use, taking vacation pictures or whatever, but that gives us the detail that we need to prosecute this case, because in this situation, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And so the officers don't have to worry about their phones being subpoenaed. They use these cameras, and we're going to get them out to everyone on the road and our detectives. And that gives the ability to get great pictures in a bad situation that night and document what is going on, because 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 months later, we have to go back and see that. And if the jury or the judge can see the damage and the trauma that goes on that night in that house, and we can capture it the best, those are the type of simple things that we can do. And we're doing a lot of other steps. That she's in there. My chief, Deputy Creed Hatch, is on the Fatality Review Board across the state. Those are the type of things that we've got to keep going on. Our new body cameras have been great, and document what's going on. And the best thing about the body cameras is audio is there too. So you hear, and during the trial, maybe you'll hear the child screaming in the background, or the drama, or the concern and trauma that's going on in that household when the officer arrives. So those are things we're doing to make better cases, to get people convicted, and stop this, hopefully, just in that household. That's what we got to work with, is household at a time, and doing our best to make the best cases. So the solicitor's job is a lot easier. And again, a picture is worth 1,000 words. We appreciate everybody coming out here today and seeing what we can do together and get the word out, because domestic violence affects everyone. I've been in houses from PhDs to the worst places you can think of that a child has to live. And we've together got to come and do what we can to pull this together and make domestic violence not acceptable in our counties. And that's a lot of times what we're seeing, and you're seeing across the state, what's acceptable. And we're stating today that domestic violence is not acceptable in our counties. Thank you.
Well said. Inside the solicitor's office, we have different units, and one of those units is the domestic violence unit. And I want to recognize 2 of my assistant solicitors. Judy Munson is in charge of that unit, and they receive these cases that you just heard about on a regular basis, coming in with the reports of the violence that they are seeing inside households in Greenville and Pickens counties. Brittany Scott is also in that unit as well, and she is directly in charge of the Domestic Violence Coordinating Council and has been working tirelessly to push that mission forward, and have done a fantastic job. Domestic violence is a difficult crime to prosecute, as you will hear, because the government is coming inside a household dealing with acts of violence among family members. So it creates a unique dynamic. I'm going to ask Judy Munson to come forward, explain a little bit about that, and introduce our victim.
Thank you, Walt. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Just come down a little bit. Kind of short. Inside the domestic violence unit, there are 5 attorneys, 4 investigators, 2 or 3 victim advocates, and I'm not counting the lawyers that work in domestic violence court with us, which adds another 6. So there's a lot of us. We have approximately 875 domestic violence warrants right now today in that office. I mean, what does that say? That's 875 charges, allegations, incidents, and it's a terrible thing. Properly investigating and prosecuting domestic violence cases is murder prevention. And you can be assured that in Greenville and Pickens County in the 13th Circuit, law enforcement gets that. They're doing their thing. But this is so much more than that, and that's what this press conference is about. It's about reaching out to the community. That's why this is sponsored by the Domestic Violence Coordinating Community Council. So what we all need to do as a community, reach out, speak out, and stand up to stop it. We can prosecute our cases, law enforcement can make arrests, but without the knot of the community pulling us out of this mess, it's going to continue. And ladies and gentlemen, you're about to meet a woman who is a perfect example of community involvement. She used to be a domestic violence victim. Now she's a domestic violence survivor, and now she is a thriver. I want you to meet Andrea Jagalko.
Good morning. My name is Andrea Jagalko. I'm a mother, daughter, sister, friend, and survivor of domestic violence. We can work together today to stop domestic violence. It's time to reach out. I was married in January 1999. We talked and dreamed of all the good things we would have ahead of us. We would let nothing tear us apart. We had overcome hardships in our lives, so we would be there for each other through any future ones. Life was perfect. I had my best friend and protector. Over the next 13 years, reality set in little by little, like a tornado slowly developing in the sky. Every time a blow of disturbance or hurt took place in our home, like name-calling, pushing, or shoving, the tornado in my life slowly began to spiral downward. I began to live in a state of constant depression and the unrealized hope that things will get better. I learned to cope and compartmentalize all situations. This only made things worse because I did not reach out for help. I felt alone. No one loved or trusted me. I felt as if I deserved it. I was taught that once you're married, you're always married. On Wednesday evening, February 27, 2013, the tornado that had been slowly forming in my life touched down. A verbal altercation turned physical, causing tremendous injury. The intensity of the tornado was enough to send me to the hospital by EMS, where I flatlined twice. I spent 2 days in the hospital and many hours of reconstructive and spinal surgery, doctor's appointments, and therapy. This will affect me for the rest of my life. Only by God's grace am I here today. The whole time this tornado was forming, and after it touched down, my only goal was to protect my child from harm and from a life without his parents. But all that I was doing to protect him, I was actually hurting him. All children need safe homes. While I was in the hospital feeling isolated, confused, and every bone in my body hurt, I felt so alone, not realizing God had angels all around me to comfort me and protect me. To name a few, the EMS workers. Immediately, they knew there was more to it than just a fall. Victoria Allen, the nurse at GHS, she patiently sat with me and encouraged me not to go back. She sat next to me, even after her shift was over. She stroked my hair and told me I was very blessed to be alive. That I was a strong and special person, and I can make it through a stronger person. Deputy Carter with the Greenville County Sheriff's Office was so respectful and patient with both my ex-husband and me. He stayed with us for 5 hours until everything was taken care of, and I knew I had protection and would be able to work on healing and taking care of my son. Dr. James Fowler with Greenville Hospital System Reconstructive Surgery. He promised me that he would make my face as beautiful as it was. Dr. Cole, Dr. Nally, and Dr. D.T. Fulmer. They treated me with much love. They patiently repaired my teeth. It has been a long, very painful, and tedious work. Angela Trammell with Rogers C. Peace. Amazing woman. She worked me through coping with a TBI. She encouraged me to work through the frustration, and with her help, I was able to walk straighter, go up and down steps and escalators again, and work through the vertigo. My best friends, Annette Lehman, Jan Cindy, and Melvin Murphy. They have been my rocks from day one. Thank you. My adopted mom and dad, Laura and Buzz Baker, who took my son and me into their home and loved us unconditionally. They took me to unlimited appointments, my son to school, and cooked many meals for us, and gave many, many, many hugs. William Timmons, the solicitor's office immediately stepped in and made key decisions for me on the issue of domestic violence. I was grateful that I did not have to make these decisions while I was physically and emotionally unstable. Mr. Timmons was very responsive to my situation and to me as a person, not just a victim. He made it personal to fight against domestic violence. Richard Pierce, for stepping in and helping my son and me move and get settled into a new place when we were ready. And the community as a whole. They loved and embraced us immediately, no judgment, just love and support. And most of all, God. He is the reason I am here today, to encourage all women and men that are in any domestic violence situation to reach out and get help now. The time may come when it will be too late. Due to the help that was offered to my ex-husband and me, we are now able to co-parent and live in separate but safe environments. With the help of all who I have named and many, many more, I can provide a safe environment for my son, and he can still have both of his parents in his life. I have been able to meet with many organizations, businesses, and people who offer help for domestic violence. I was not aware that so many opportunities to get help quickly, safely, and confidentially. My ex-husband was ordered to take a batterer's treatment class for 6 months. He learned some key signs and responses to anger and frustration. He is still accountable today. There is help for both the survivor and the offender. Please reach out now to find an opportunity to help with your situation. As I have learned, after the fact, there are so many people out there waiting to help you. You just have to ask for the help for domestic violence. My name is Andrea Jagalko. I'm a mother, daughter, sister, friend, and survivor of domestic violence. I am asking the community to get involved and take a stand against domestic violence. Thank you.
What a great testimony. It goes to show you that this is a community problem. It's not just a law enforcement problem or a prosecutor's problem. It is a problem in our communities as humans, as citizens of Greenville and Pickens counties. We ask you to recognize October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month and to get involved if you need to be. I want to thank law enforcement for being here, our friends at Compass, our service providers who've done such a great job helping with victims, my prosecutors, and everyone else who has assisted in victim advocates. Throughout October, communities across the country will mourn for those lives that were taken by domestic violence, celebrate the tremendous progress victim advocates have made over the years, and connect with one another with a true sense of unity to end domestic violence. Thank you. Thank you all for coming.